Just, like, can I remote view the Brooklyn Bridge? Can I remote view Carlsbad Cavern? Can I remote view an old shack on a bay somewhere? So I'll do a lot of targets like that just to prove that the remote viewing is valid. It is fun to do these targets like Iapetus. I knew nothing about Iapetus, and I was initially saying to myself, God, why this? This is a sheer rock wall that's rock. It's overlooking what looks to be a crater where there's a bunch of rocks and silt and sand and not much here. And then I kind of got onto it. Oh, there was something here. There was something in the wall of this thing that looks like an old structure that's kind of decaying. Like, well, let's move back and look at this. And then I realized what it was. For me, it was so interesting to stand there and have that come to me. And then I looked up and I looked in the air and I said, my God, that's a beautiful view. Well, there's something big and glowing up in the sky. What is that? Well, it was Saturn. So that was an experiential event for me that was, wow, hey, that was cool. That was really neat. Oh, I understand that now. Something that I'd never considered before that I got to go experience. So that for me is like worth the price of admission. Hey, that was neat. Glad I did that.
And right, absolutely. And there's so many anomalies. If you look at some of the photographs from satellites that have gone past Iapetus and taken pictures, a lot of artificial-looking structures out there. It almost looks like the Death Star from Star Wars, almost identical. I mean, it has some of the same blast sites and everything. So when you guys did that, when you did that project and had the opportunity to remote view Iapetus, could you describe some details for our listeners, like what it was like out there? Did you have a chance to see any people? What were they like? Were they aristocratic? Were they spiritual people? What was their story?
My sense of it was that there was something built on Iapetus long, long, long ago. Like it might be 1 million years ago. I didn't have a way to calibrate it, but we have a probing tool in our method. And you can see this in the video where I'm pulling my pen down this timeline, and it keeps going back, like long, long time ago. And what I got was that there was a very opulent structure that was like a mega resort. You think of, if you say, oh, there's a base on the moon, or there's a structure on Mars, or there's a structure on something around Saturn, most people would think, oh, okay, well, it's an alien base, or they're mining, there's got to be a mining operation, or maybe it's a scientific observation. What came to me was that this place was like a resort. Like you would go there to see the view, and the view was spectacular because imagine, that picture from the moon of that the astronauts took of the Earth rise, and it blew their mind, like, wow, we can see Earth rising. Imagine being close to Saturn and seeing Saturn rising. I think it's like if you were the guy from Virgin Atlantic, what's his name, Richard Branson, he's got so many millions of dollars. If Richard Branson had the technical ability to build a hotel on the moon so that you could take a shuttle, launch off and go have lunch and spend the night on the moon and look at the Earth from the moon, like go out on the balcony and say, here's the Earth rising. there's a lot of people that would spend money to go do that. I mean, wouldn't that be a trip? Wouldn't that be an amazing weekend to go spend the weekend on Moon? And if they had the ability to give you good food, and it was like a really nice resort, but you're on the Moon and you just look at the view like, hey, I'm looking at the Moon, I'm looking at Earth. I got a sense that somebody built that on Iapetus. That it was like, okay, go here and see the site. And it also, I got a sense, and I think Daz may have gotten this too, that it had some type of spiritual or healing properties. I saw a documentary once where people go to the mud flats on the Red Sea to go sit in water and mud, and it heals their arthritis. I think it's the Red Sea. I got a sense that there was something like that on Iapetus. There was something that you would go there for a healing or rejuvenation and just to admire the view and just be blown away by that you're sitting there. I mean, the rings of Saturn up close are really spectacular. And that was my sense of it. I didn't do enough of the session. You know, I only spent maybe 30, 40 minutes describing the crater. And then when I got onto the facility, I spent another 30, 40 minutes describing that. It may be that thing may be artificial.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, if you look at the photographs, it almost looks like, you know, first off, like looks just like the Death Star. But then if you look at some of the close-up pictures, it almost looks like these just ginormous octagon panels are putting this thing together, similar to a greenhouse out here on Earth, but obviously a lot larger. And then there's that 20-mile high, 20-mile wide wall that goes around the entire circumference of the Moon.
Yeah, it does look a little unusual. I don't have any direct remote viewing data. I didn't get anything on that. When you remote view, it's kind of like going into a movie theater halfway through the movie and watching it through the tube of a, you know, paper towels come like a toilet paper or paper towel tube. Like you're looking at it with one eye through that tube and it's blurry, and you only get to look for 3 seconds every 1 minute, and you got to give me the plot of the movie. Remote viewing is kind of like that. You can get broad concepts, but a lot of the specific things are just where you turn your attention, and one viewer can see something and the other viewer will miss it. It's not a 360-degree omniscience. It's an interesting thing.
Absolutely. When you were doing the remote viewing out there, Dick, on the Iapetus, did you happen to see people put it together or experience what it was like for them out there looking out at Saturn?
Yeah, I got a view of. See, let me describe. I have to remember how this was when I did it. I was looking at the land on Iapetus, so okay, I'm focusing my attention, and for a while I get this crater that's barren and kind of dark and nothing, no structures. And then I look at this rock wall, and then I get this structure, and then I go back in time and I see, well, this had a big viewing port, and it was very like wait staff and support staff, and then people that would come and lounge around and be like hotel guests or whatever. And then I said, well, there's something in the air. Let me look at the air. So I looked up into the sky, and I said, wow, there's this huge, I said, this is the most amazing glowing thing. It wasn't exactly in focus to me, but it was the rings of Saturn in the planet. So I didn't know I was on Iapetus. I didn't know it was Saturn. I just said, hey, there's something big and real bright and glowing in the sky that is just breathtaking. And I drew it, but it was like, oh, okay. When I found out it was Saturn, now I understand it. But at the time, I didn't know. I just knew really amazing sight up in the sky. Probably one of the most interesting targets I did was 9/11. Things I realized about that. Did you see our 9/11 presentation?
I did, and I actually had the opportunity to speak with Courtney about those projects that you did. That'd be wonderful if we could discuss it here. Before we jump into what you saw, let me ask you this, Dick. What did you think about 9/11 before you actually did those sessions?
I didn't believe the official story. I believed the official the day it happened, I remember watching that one of the towers come down, and I went, what? That's not right. How did that thing just mushroom down? How can that be? And then I remember not long after that happened, they had full color pictures and names of the so-called hijackers, Honjur and Atta and all these guys. They had their names and their pictures. And I know that as a news reporter, I've covered many crimes. And I've covered federal investigations. They don't put out pictures and names that quick. They don't come to a conclusion in 2 hours after the event. I thought, what the hell are they doing putting these guys' pictures on the TV? If they knew all these guys, how come they couldn't stop them? So something bothered me about that, but I still basically believed the story, the official story. It wasn't until a couple of years later. I mean, I got caught up in the patriotic fervor. I read an account by a Dr. Stephen Jones of BYU, and I used to work in Utah, and I know that BYU professors are very conservative. And this guy was a PhD, and he put out a paper of the physics showing that the tower couldn't have dropped at that speed, that it violated physics unless it was a controlled demolition.
He lost his job too because of that. Did you know that, Dick?
Yeah. So I started doubting the story by that time, and the whole thing doesn't. I mean, come on. You tell me NORAD can't track an airliner, that 2 airliners, 3 airliners can just turn off the transponders and fly around and they can't track them?
Exactly.
You tell me that you could fly something into the Pentagon without it being shot down? No way. Well, then our tax dollars have all been wasted, and our military is a bunch of clowns. And I don't believe that. I don't believe any of it. And the more I look into it, the more I don't believe. No sane, intelligent person can look at that and believe it. I mean, you can't take somebody with their skill level and go in the cockpit of an airplane and even find New York, and let alone fly a plane there. And
right.
so I never believed the official story on 9/11. There's a really good, what's the movie? I think it's called The $1 Trillion Conspiracy. That's a Jim Marrs book, but there's a YouTube video that has top scientists, top architects, top engineers just going over the 9/11 story piece by piece, point by point, and they refute the official story. You can't see that and believe the official story. Well, so I never believed it.
There's so much data to point to it was a controlled demolition, and it would be virtually impossible for 17 terrorists with box cutters from caves in Saudi Arabia to take down those towers and then attack the Pentagon that way. You're right. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, never happened. Okay, so now here I am in fall of 2014, and Courtney Brown says, Dick, we're going to do a project. And the last thing I ever thought Courtney Brown would give me was 9/11. We'd never discussed it. He told me, well, he once said to me, I brought something up about 9/11. He goes, oh, well, Farsight, we can't ever do a project on that. It's too controversial. And I said, oh, well, that's too bad. So I was under the impression that we would never get that as a target. So I'm given a target, and this was, I think, target 10. So I'm working 10A. And the last target we had done was the Great Pyramids. So I'm working target 10A, and I get, I see a big building, and then I see a river. And I said, okay, there's a river there's a big building near a river, and there's some trees. So I'm getting my bearings, okay, I saw the building, okay, I know there's a river, there's a bridge across the river. I don't know, there's no one guiding me, I'm all alone, and I'm working for like an hour here. I say, okay, there's the big structure, there's the river, I see some small boats on the river, I see a freeway, I see a bridge going across the river toward the building, and I see trees. I don't know what's important. Is the building important? Is the bridge important? Is activity on the river? I don't know if it might be an archaeological site, that there's something buried on the banks of the river that they're looking at. I don't know. So I'm just trying to look at it piece by piece by piece. So I'm looking at the sky, and I go, oh, my goodness, there's something flying overhead. I see a flash. So I go, okay, what's this? So I look at it, and I go, well, this looks like a missile. I said, okay, so there's a missile flying over a building. And so I said, well, let me look at the building. So I look at the building and said, well, man, it's got a lot of corridors in it. This is a building that's really big, and it's got a lot of corridors, and it's got a lot of offices. And then I go inside and say, oh, in these corridors, they have pictures that are of historical significance. They got plaques and pictures, almost like a museum. So it's okay, there's this big building with a lot of corridors with plaques, and then there's a river and a bridge and a freeway and some trees, and there's something flying over. And I said, let me look at this thing. I go, well, this is a missile. This is like a cruise missile. Well, it was launched by a submarine. It impacts this building, boom. And it was fired from a submarine, and it was guided in there. The target I was working... Now, never in my mind at this point was there any thought of 9/11. I said that it was just these disjointed images of the building and the missile flying over, and the target was what hit the Pentagon. So it was never an airliner. So do you understand a little bit about my mindset of when I worked this target, of not really knowing what it was I was looking at, but seeing all the elements? The target was what hit the Pentagon.
Right.
So you with me?
You actually saw you saw a missile from a submarine hit the Pentagon?
Yeah. It was a cruise missile launched by a submarine.
Were you able to see what the submarine looked like? Was it like Chinese, or was it one of our own?
Courtney didn't put this in. Courtney didn't put this in the project because it's very controversial and it was not corroborated. Daz Smith, the other viewer, corroborated that it was a missile that hit the Pentagon. My data was not corroborated by him. My sense was that it was and I've never said this in public, an Israeli submarine.
Wow.
And
wow.
I've got that data. I've never published it. I'm thinking of, do I want to publish it? Because that leads to a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, that's a
I
big
even
can
named
right there.
I named the guy that pushed the button. I was on the submarine and I saw the guy, and he didn't know if it was a test or a real scenario. He didn't know where it was targeted, where it was going. All he knew was, we're doing a drill, we're doing this is, do this, do the countdown, do the blah, 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 fire, boom, order, missile away. That's what I got. It's an interesting clip that wasn't in the video, and I may release that someday. There are people that
would love to have that. If you want a platform or another place to put that information out there, please feel free to, Dick. Would love to get that information up. There's a lot of speculation on the internet. Obviously, here's the thing with the internet. You know as much as I do. Anybody can say anything about anyone at any time online. You can be 7 foot tall, bench press 400 pounds, and have laser beams coming out of your eyeballs to take out the enemies on the internet. And in real life, obviously, it's a whole different story. So this information that you're bringing out there with the education, the resources, the exercises, and just what you have done over the past 18 years, this is quite fascinating. But there has been many rabbit holes that have led down to the possibility of Israel having something to do with the destruction of the Twin Towers, So that would be absolutely incredible to see that information.
And
did you?
Yeah, and let me caution that this data from my session is uncorroborated, and it may not be true. I mean, I may have made it up. I don't know. So I'm not going to say that is true and that you can believe it, but it's what came to me in the session. So,
were there certain markings, or did you see the specific sigils or symbols that pointed to it being an Israeli sub?
Well, I perceived like the Star of David flag, the blue and white flag with the Star of David and 2 blue lines, and I got the guy's name, which was I won't say his name here, but I got a sense that it was an Israeli submarine. Does Israel have? I guess they have submarines. I don't know. I'm not up on that. Do they?
This is pretty deep right here. Now, when you said that you felt that the person that pushed the button might not have even known if it was a drill or the real deal.
My sense was he didn't know if there was a live warhead. I mean, I don't think. I think I said it in the session. I go, would someone who launches this thing know if there was a warhead on it or where it was going? I don't know. I just think that my sense that he was doing his duty, that he was very well trained, and that he was had a sense of, this is my duty. I'm going to do it. I follow orders, and I take pride in doing this really well and doing it exactly like I'm supposed to. That was my sense of it.
Have you had the opportunity to dive into who gave him the orders?
No, and it was where my consciousness was at that time, and you could follow that up the chain of command, but once you get feedback and once you stop the session, you can't go back really, because you're front loaded now. It only works when you're blind to the target. So at that time, I didn't know it was 9/11. I didn't know it was the Pentagon. I just knew, hey, there's a missile flying overhead. Where'd that come from? Well, it came from a submarine, And I actually, that was the best visual in the session. Was I saw the missile pop up out of the water. You know those there used to be movies from the 60s when they tested Poseidon. You know, like a cruise missile, when it goes up, it looks like it's not going to fly for a second.
Yes.
It's kind of, it
Yes.
kind of wavers, and then it gets going, and then it takes off. It looks not stable. I saw that thing. I saw that thing come off the submarine. So I had a good visual of that. I would, yeah. Whose submarine it was, I don't know. I got an idea of it, but I wouldn't stake my life on it. But an interesting bit of data.
That's very interesting. And you probably remember a few years ago when that submarine off the coast of California shot out some missile, and the media tried to say that it was some chemtrail or some airplane from FedEx or something like that. But if you watch the video, you can clearly tell it was a missile being released from the ocean, and then the Pentagon comes out and says, "Oh, we don't know. We're not sure where that came from."
That event crossed my mind when I saw the visual, because I worked, 9/11 was 14 years in the past, and that thing that was launched off California was, 4 years ago? When I saw the missile take off, that crossed my mind. I thought, maybe this is the target I'm working. Am I working the launch of that thing off the coast of California? And then I go, this is what this is like. It's just like that, but I don't think it's that. That was the chain of thoughts in my conscious mind while I'm at the board drawing this. I go, and I don't think I said it, but it reminded me of that.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it was like that. That's what it looked like. It was the same kind of thing. Submarine off the coast, launched it, but this one hit the Pentagon. You know, it wasn't a plane. No plane hit the Pentagon.
It'd be impossible.
It's not possible. No plane can fly that low and that straight, and there was no airplane wreckage there. There was no wreckage from a Boeing jetliner there.
Well, and if a plane did hit the Pentagon, then how come the hole's the size of a missile? A plane, if you look at the size of the hull of the Pentagon that actually got hit, it's not the size of an airplane, it's the size of a missile.
Yep. And then in the Twin Towers, I was inside, and I was in an office, and it was like, weep, 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 like there's a fire alarm went off, like, emergency, evacuate the building, and then people were like, well, how do we get out of here? And there were some people that I got were staying behind, like, hey, we got to put these papers away, we got to secure this stuff. So 9/11 was such a big event. When you remote view that, you could get caught up in any number of little scenarios that were happening. But we definitely, some of the strongest analytic data I've ever seen. Here's an interesting side note of the 9/11 is I worked these 4 targets, and eventually I thought, man, this reminds there's something like 9/11. This reminds me of something similar to 9/11. I wasn't talking to Daz, the other viewer. We don't compare notes. We don't compare data. We don't communicate in any way when we're working. I'm in Hawaii. He's in Bristol, England. He's doing his sessions. When we were finally all finished, no more remote viewing could be done. We'd submitted all our work, all our paper and pen sessions, all our comments, all our videos, everything signed, sealed, and delivered, but we didn't have feedback yet. The target was still unknown to us. I had an opportunity to look at Daz's videos, so I'm looking at his stuff, and I go, man, he's drawing this building, and he's drawing this missile, and he's drawing the same missile that I drew. And I thought, did he see my session? Because I know I didn't see his, but I go, did he have a way to see my session, and he's copying my session? I mean, I know he wouldn't do that. And then I realized his was submitted I was out of the country for a couple of weeks, and he did his session before me. So I'm looking at him drawing a missile, and I know I didn't see that, and I know there's no way he could see mine because I hadn't done mine yet. And we both described the same thing, the same missile. And when we got to the planners of who planned the event, no data about guys in caves in Afghanistan, nobody in turbans, no Islamic fundamentalists. What we saw, the people that planned it were like executive, military, industrial, Caucasian, white men of great power. Guys that, wear nice cufflinks and have coffee, very expensive coffee in nice china cups, and they have a little, agenda in a leather-bound folder. We got the top people were the planners of that. And that's all in the video. That's a good video to watch. I would urge people to go to farsight.org and sign up for that one on Vimeo. That's a good video.
Well, and I'm sure that you know about the one of the biggest insurance policies ever to be taken out, those towers, just a couple of weeks before the event took place. That certainly seems quite peculiar as well. So there's a ton of evidence out there that points to this being not what the official version says it is. So, I really appreciate you bringing that information out, Vic, because, it takes a lot of guts to do that. So props to you. There's many projects that you have been a part of that a lot of people will probably never have the opportunity to hear about unless it's presented to them. And I was hoping that we could also discuss some other projects you've been a part of, like the domes that you found on Mars.
That was one of my great visual, because not the dome, but the spray. It was another part of that.
Right, out of that tunnel.
I was working that session, and I looked, and I drew that spray exactly. It looks exactly like the target photo, and I had never seen that target photo. I was never exposed to that, but I closed my eyes and I saw that, and it was, I saw some stuff beneath the surface. Now, again, it may be that there is just something up there that looks like a spray and looks like a dome, and maybe what I saw underneath it, maybe I made it up. Maybe I made up that was an Israeli submarine. I can't say for sure. Unless you have multiple viewers corroborating it, it's interesting, but it's not conclusive. So, I saw some stuff underneath Mars. I think in this most recent, the Cydonia one, I think there was a very complex civilization up there, very advanced, that traveled about in like high-speed rail tubes, like a subway system that was maglev, high-speed, electromagnetic, something. Interesting place, Mars.
And when you did those viewing sessions, there's the original movie Total Recall that came out in the 80s with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's out there on Mars, and they find this ancient million-year-old alien structure that's a big giant pyramid. And at the very end of the movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger finally gets his hand on it, and he pushes the button, and it turns the atmosphere into an atmosphere and a planet where people can actually breathe and function without being inside of these buildings that this giant overlord has created, to keep people suppressed in. And then when you guys came out with that work, and I saw that picture from NASA's own satellites that correlated with the work you guys did, it looks very similar to that. And I almost wonder sometimes with these Hollywood movies that come out, if the information that they're bringing out upon the masses is actually, got some truth behind it. If they'll take a story and then fabricate it and, put a lot of Hollywood psychobabble in it, but also the basis or the foundation might have some merit. So when I interviewed Courtney about those domes on Mars that had that spray that was coming out of those tubes, he said that he thinks that the individuals or the people that are in there are actually not of Earth origin. When you did those sessions, do you feel that the people that were in there are actually Martian, like maybe from Mars, or do you think that they're from our planet from a long time ago, or maybe that they're, you know, us now and they're some type of secret organization, military organization that's actually putting people on Mars?
My sense of it was that they were indigenous, that there was a civilization there, that maybe we are them. I don't think they are. I don't think we went from Earth to there. I think they were there long ago and had their own civilization, and something cataclysmic happened, and the planet, you know, was made barren like it is today. But there's some people speculating that maybe not that barren, that it might have an atmosphere. The atmosphere felt pretty thin to me.
And you also had the opportunity to remote view Cydonia. When you did that session or that project, what was it like?
That one was interesting because, excuse me, I need to cough. 1 second.
Sure.
Pardon me. Okay, I'll get a lozenge. When I did Cydonia, I got a real experiential, that face on Mars. I mean, there's not a face there, but it's a big mountain. It's a big hillside. I plopped right down right next to that, and I could see it. And I saw the land under me is kind of bluish color, and I found some NASA pictures, and it is blue around that. Looks almost kind of like ice, but so I got this eroded, rugged, barren mountain. And if you look at my early work, it looks just like the shots of that feature there. So I got a sense that it reminded me of like Mount Suribachi, which is on Iwo Jima, you know, that volcanic cinder that the Marines assaulted in World War II. It's a famous, looked like Iwo Jima kind of, but without the battleground. And so then I was sent back in time to earlier, and I got a very complex civilization with these incredible tunnel systems that they had used for transportation. So yeah, there was a lot going on Mars back in the day. Hey, I'll tell you an interesting case I'm working on right now. I can't give you the details.
Okay.
Somebody gave me a target 4 years ago. And, okay, so we've been talking about Cydonia on Mars, Iapetus, 9/11, missile launches, all that kind of stuff. I'm given a target. It could be any of those things, or it could be the Brooklyn Bridge. Could be anything. I start my session and I get, somebody just got attacked. There's a person, and it's light here and it's dark here. There's a shadow, and a guy grabs a girl, throws her in a van, drives her out of town. She's very drunk. Where was she? Well, I hear thump, thump, thump. You know, you hear music like down the block. There's loud, that bass, boom, 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 like music in a club from outside. And people go outside to smoke. And there's a main intersection, and this guy grabbed this girl and he drove her out of town. I put that up on the internet, and that somebody saw that a few years later and just contacted me and said, Dick, I'm an investigator. We're investigating this abduction of this woman, and you got some really good information. You have some information that we know that public doesn't know. I said, oh, okay. Turns out I did another session on that. There is a natural psychic that is not a trained remote viewer, but is a very, I believe, good psychic that gave information about a property involved in this. And then another remote viewer named Joe McMoneagle. You know Joe McMoneagle's name?
I'm not familiar with Joe.
Okay, well, he's one of the famous military remote viewers. He's one of the better ones. Bottom line is, I did 2 sessions, another remote viewer did some sessions, and a psychic gave some data, and it led to a property, and we found the property based on the descriptions, and we believe there's a body on the property, and the police won't act on it, because it's remote, too woo-woo. It's remote viewing and psychic stuff. So we think we could solve a homicide, but it's private property. We can't get on. What do we do?
Well, aren't there certain police forces that actually have psychics that work with them to help them?
Yes, there are. And, yeah, I've done work for some, and I know, but this is, these law enforcement agencies don't believe. I don't know. It's still ongoing. I'll keep you posted. I will come on your show if they go find the remains on that site based on remote viewing. That will be something. That will be
That'd
a big.
Be great.
I'll do a show about that.
How wonderful would it be for you to be able to use your intelligence and the knowledge that you have obtained over these years to, find out about these cases where somebody's been kidnapped or murdered, and you can solve the case. I mean, put that to use. Yeah. I am actually appalled that police force that you've told about wouldn't actually let you do something like that. I mean, that's crazy. Can you tell
we're still working on it. We're still working on it, but. You know, there was a remote viewer from the Hawaii Remote Viewers Guild named Rose Kopp. She passed away last year, but boy, she was a psychic and trained as a remote viewer. And when you get a good psychic that learns the remote viewing methodology, they can be really, really good. And she worked a target for the what's the name? It's down in Louisiana. It's I can't remember the name of the town outside of New Orleans. She did some work, and the police believed her, and they acted on a tip, and they caught the murderer. The guy is serving life in prison in the penitentiary in Louisiana because he was arrested and convicted based on remote viewing data. And there was a national show. I can't remember the name. I've got the videotape here somewhere. It was on national television. They did a show about it. They interviewed her. So it has been done, and there are police departments that will take this seriously. I hope this one does. I'll keep you posted. We're still. I probably said too much about it, but there is we think we know where there might be a body, and we're trying to get the police to act on it. So, and it's based on 2 remote viewing sessions and a psychic session.
Can you tell our listeners? Can you tell our listeners on here on Leak Project where the private property is?
No, it's on the mainland U.S. somewhere, but I've been asked not to.
That's fair.
If we find anything, I'll tell you. I'll promise to tell you. Now, the new project that we have coming out, you're going to love this one. When did you interview Courtney?
You know, I've had the opportunity to interview Courtney probably a half dozen times. The last time I spoke with him was about 3 weeks ago. we did a show on your most recent work, Aliens on Iapetus.
Okay, well, he's editing a new one right now. He's in the studio recording it, and it is, okay, here's another one where I'm not told what it was, not the pyramids, not Iapetus, not 9/11, not an archaeological site, not a missing person. I saw something glowing in the sky. Wow, these glowing things above a city. Oh, the city was in a barren area where it's really flat and dry, but there's people, a lot of people looking up at these lights. Well, what are they looking at? Wow, that looks like a flying saucer to me. I go inside. Oh, my goodness, this is magnetic, this and that. And the target was the Phoenix Lights, and that's our next project. It'll be coming out in a few weeks. What was the Phoenix Lights?
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
On this one,
wow.
Daz and I drew the same thing. Unbeknownst to, I didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know what I was doing. Totally blind. Target 12B or 12D, and we drew the same thing. And I got some interesting data on that one. You'll really enjoy that one.
Is there any information you can give us now? Is there any information you can give us now on it before it comes out?
I had some really interesting stuff come to me about how they travel between the stars. That stars are waypoints to another dimension. I didn't really understand it, but it just was coming through me. Yeah, you'll have to see that one. We both. I had a little conversation with a guy that was in the craft. Now, I may have been crazy. I may have been making it up, but I'm not sure. It's on the video. It's another one of those pretty strange, but I did draw I also got a sense that there were people on the ground vectoring it in. Like I said, okay, there's a bunch of people watching this going, ooh, wow, look at that. And there were other people going like, okay, it's coming at this time. Let's make sure it's on schedule, type of thing.
So like people with plans here that knew it was coming, they were like connecting with it.
Yeah, I did. It's kind of like that session I did, I think last winter. So it's been months. I haven't even looked at my data on that. And Iapetus too. Those were, and the other ones on Mars, that was even farther back. So I do so many sessions, and so much stuff comes at me. It's like I'm in the moment, and like I'm really into it. And if you would ask me right after I did it, I don't really, I just do them and submit them, and like, okay, Courtney edits them, and they come out. And I have to go look at the video to remember exactly what I said sometimes. I mean, some of it really sticks with me, like seeing the missile, seeing Saturn up there, feeling what the girl felt when she was abducted. But a lot of the little details, they just come out, and you say them and write them down, and then it goes right by. It's an unusual skill.
Yeah, quite fascinating. I got to tell you, with the ability to do what you do you ever want to, let's say you watch something on the news, CNN, the Communist News Network, comes out with something that says, there's this mass shooting in Charleston, and this, 120-pound, 5'9" kid goes out and shoots 9 people in a church that are black, and he's white, and he's all for the Confederate flag, and he's racist. And you start looking into the details, and you say, wow, well, there's a lot of there's a lot of fabricated information that's coming out on CNN. I wonder if that's really true. Have you ever thought about, just tapping into those scenes, like to find out if the Boston Marathon the Boston Marathon massacre was actually real, not just a bunch of crisis actors, similar to 9/11?
Yeah.
The 9/11 event that took place.
Well, here's the thing. A remote viewer has to be blind, so I cannot self-task. I can't look at that shooting in Charleston and go, okay, well, let me remote view that, because there's too much conscious information. When you begin a target, you have to be open to anything and have no idea what it is you're looking at. So that would have to be tasked for me by someone else, and it really is best to not do current events. So, like, when that airliner was lost, the Malaysia airliner over Indonesia, the one that
the
disappeared over Vietnam. That was so much in the news. If you would have given me a remote viewing target and I couldn't do that, because you can't really do current events because it's too much in your conscious mind. You have to be able to set your conscious mind aside and listen to your subconscious, and it's best if it's a surprise to you. So, yes, I would like to know what happened, and I think that there are a number of false flags that they want to take our guns away from us, and I would advise people to not give up your Second Amendment right, because the reason we have the Second Amendment is to stop. It's not to shoot clay pigeons. It's not to shoot ducks. It's not to shoot targets. It is to protect ourselves, and it's to stop the government from enslaving us. That's why we have the Second Amendment. It's to because we might need to shoot the people that want to enslave us.
Well, isn't it funny?
And
how,
I think, yeah.
I was just going to make a comment here real quick, Dick. Isn't it funny how whenever one of these, mass shootings goes off by a lone gunman, that China comes out in the news and says, "Oh, well, I just can't believe your gun laws out there, and we can't believe that you allow citizens to have guns. That's why these events take place." China? Why do you care, China?
Well, China, have you ever seen the pictures of women that wanted to be part of a certain religion and spoke out about that in public? And the Chinese take these women out and tie them up and shoot their head off. Yeah, okay. We want to emulate that, right? No.
Oh, yeah.
No, don't give up the Second Amendment. And I just saw a thing on the internet today. It was like, Australia hasn't had a mass shooting since they all gave up their guns. It's like,
I read that too.
Yeah, well, what I personally think about that is that, okay, so they haven't had a manufactured false flag. They don't need to, because they've taken their guns away. What is the overall crime rate? There are people that can't protect themselves. Home invasions have gone up dramatically because they know that law-abiding citizens don't have a gun to protect themselves. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what.
It's retarded.
When I was 10 years old, when I was 10 years old, I lived in Utah, and my father bought me a .22 rifle, and he took me to the range and got me a course and taught me how to shoot that safely. And we used to go out. When I was a teenager, I would sling that thing over my shoulder and walk through the neighborhood, walk up into the mountains and shoot cans. And it was legal, and I did it safely. And what a different time. This was the early 1960s. But I was taught how to use firearms, and I was taught how to do it safely. It was part of the culture. Different times. It's sad what's happened to America. I'm old. I'm 61. I've seen just hideous changes. I mean, I tell young people, you go to an airport and they search they search you for no reason. They can't do that. That's against the Fourth Amendment of the.
If you don't go through that naked body scanner, then they're going to molest you.
Well, I don't go through it, and they do molest me, and I say, I've got to bite my tongue. My wife gets mad at me. I say, what do you suspect me of? Excuse me, sir? I said, you have to have probable cause to search me, and you need a court order. The last time I went through, the guy took my wallet and started pawing through my wallet. I said, what are you doing? He started going through my wallet. You can't do that. I mean, the fact that we have allowed this to happen is just, it's sad. Sad, sad, sad. And it all goes, and the guy that was shaking me down, the guy that was patting me down, pointed to a 9/11 memorial and said, it's because after 9/11 we got to do this. Well, that's why they had the false flag.
So with what I do, I have the opportunity to travel the country quite extensively. I'm out here in Maryland right now. I had the opportunity to drive down to a beach area in the bay out there, Chesapeake Bay. When I drove down there, I drove past the NSA, and that complex out here in Maryland is about, it's ginormous. But it made me think, with all of the stuff out there today that says, you got to watch your neighbor, you got to keep an eye on what people say because you might have some lone gunman out there that's going to create a terrorist act. Well, last time I flew was to Alaska, which was about 2 years ago, and the only reason I flew out there is because I had to. I didn't have the chance to drive quick enough. And when I flew out there, the guy the TSA guy said, no, I'm not going to go through your naked body scanner. So he pats me down, and as he's patting me down, he says, you know what? I wouldn't go through that thing either. So even the TSA guy, he told me flat out, he said, I'm not going to go through that. He says, I don't blame you.
He shouldn't even be standing next to it. He can get cancer just standing next to the thing.
So, I picked up a Geiger counter. It's a military-grade Geiger counter. It's actually built into my watch. It's an MTM Special Ops watch. I paid about $1,500 for it, and it was a very good investment. So I keep track of the radiation levels wherever I go. And when I flew out to Alaska, the radiation levels jumped up about 80 times what they are on the ground.
Fukushima. Is that Fukushima, you think, or?
I don't know. It could be a combination of Fukushima and just the fact that you're out, 20,000, 30,000 feet up in the air, and you're going to get bombarded with
the background radiation is higher. You get a dose of radiation every time you fly on an airplane.
It's surprising how high the levels are, though. If you figure you're up to 80 times the amount of radiation when you're in the air, you would think that maybe flight attendants and pilots would have, their radiation levels, I guess you could say, they would keep an eye on it, per se. But they don't. They don't say anything to the flight attendants or the pilots out there.
Well, my fantasy, I've toyed with this, is, excuse me, I would like to start a protest movement to encourage people to not fly. I think we should all boycott flying. They've made the seats so small, it's inhuman to sit there. When I fly, I have to fly across the ocean. Just the whole search, the whole the inside of the cabin, the way they're crowding you in, we should just say no. No, I'm not going to sit there with my knees. The last time I flew coach, I went to Asia in December. I got in the plane, and international travel, it used to be not too bad. They give you some leg room. When I got on this plane, it was China Airlines. Used to be pretty good. Shame on you, China Airlines. I was shocked. I sat down, and the seat in front of me was so close to me, and I couldn't even, there wasn't even room for my knees. I had to move my leg. It was just inhumane. We should, if we could get 10 to 20% of Americans to say, nope, I'm not going to fly. Write a letter to the airline. Don't go visit your family. If you have business, do it over Skype or go to meeting, on a computer. Don't go on vacation. Go on a vacation where you can drive, and just shut the airlines down for a few months. Anyway,
that's a good idea.
Yeah,
hey,
I wish we
for
could
that.
keep movement going. Just tell them, no, we're not going to fly under these conditions.
Well, have you noticed that they've kind of calmed down a lot with the naked body scanners and the groping of people? They, if you look at what it's like now versus just a few years ago, like maybe let's say 3 years ago when they released these naked body scanners and put them all across the boards, it seems like they've started to calm down because people said, hey, look, I'm not going to let you grope my 5-year-old daughter because I don't want her to be blasted with radiation going through a naked body scanner.
Well, they back off a little bit. They go 3 steps forward and then they take 1 step back, but they've still gone 2 steps forward. So yeah, they'll go as far as we'll let them. There's no reason for TSA. It should be abolished. They haven't caught any terrorists. Yeah, I could rant about this all day, but it's so back to remote viewing. Remote viewing is real. It's fascinating. It's a natural communication skill. Just about, I think everyone can do it. Some people can do it better than others. It's like I could teach you how to play 2 chords on a guitar. You probably won't be able to play like Eric Clapton any time in your life, but if you practice, you could play a pretty reasonable bunch of songs. Same way with remote viewing. It's a natural skill if you learn the techniques. I'm working on a training video. I might have it out in about next year. The method I was taught, I'm going about putting it on on a video so I can memorialize it and pass it along. It was a great technique that was developed by the military, and my guy that taught me realized it was so valuable and so important to humanity that he needed to share it, and he did for no money. It needs to be passed along, so I'll let you know when I have that done.
Please do. We'll definitely love to have it on our channel. For those that are listening, check us out at youtube.com/clandestine Time Lord. Jason over at Disclosure Media Net. Really appreciate you streaming us live on there as well, Jason. And Dick, I got to tell you, man, what you're doing is absolutely incredible. We live in a society today where the people that control the media and the educational systems feed lies perpetually to the masses. And people like you and Courtney and Daz have the opportunity to get out into the truth and at least bring out information that we're not going to be told unless we scour the internet or scour the webs, and we have to go through all this riffraff and wipe away all this crap to get to the gems. So I really applaud what you're doing, man, and I hope that you continue to keep up these incredible remote viewing sessions. What you're doing there at the Hawaiian Remote Viewing Guild and with Courtney is absolutely amazing. We've got about 4 minutes left. No, thank you. We've got about 4 minutes left, Dick, and I was hoping whatever information you can share with us with these last 4 minutes.
Well, I'll tell you, this doesn't have anything to do with remote viewing. I was in mainstream television news for 38 years. I've been on CNN. I've done a couple live reports for CNN. I've had my stories picked up by CNN. I've been on ABC News. I've done a couple live, like when the hurricanes come in, like we go to affiliate such and such with Dick Allgire Standing by Life. So I've been in the pretty much mainstream news. I no longer believe any of it. On CNN, I don't trust anything they say. I think it's all propaganda. I don't believe Fox News. I certainly don't believe MSNBC. All those major network outlets have been taken over, and it is mind control. That's just my opinion. I don't believe any. I can't watch CNN. I watch CNN once in a while just to kind of see how bad it is. I'll look at it and just go, my goodness, it's just turned into such infotainment, personality, propaganda. It's sad. It's sad. Because I really did believe I was doing a vital service when I started in journalism. We had to educate the public. We had to be the eyes and ears of the common man, and keep people informed. And I think on a local level that still happens. Like I believe when there's a fire down the street, they're telling you the best they can about that. When the mayor wants a new sewer system, that they've got to put that information out. But on a national level, I think it's all controlled. Yeah. Our next project is the Phoenix Lights. Watch for it at www.farsight.org. There will be an announcement, I think, probably middle of next month. Courtney has been putting some of our other projects. The Atlantis project is up for free, so people can go to Farsight and watch that one without paying for it. Those are not as advanced as our current ones. The production values, the actual remote viewing on camera has come quite a bit farther, but you can get an idea of what we're about. So watch for our next session.
Absolutely.
It's sad what's happened to America. It really is sad. I guess we've got to be thankful for every day and thankful that we're still able to communicate like this. I hope they don't shut us down.
Yeah, me too. Because with what we have, America is such a great nation, and there's so many intelligent minds here still, that if we could just get out of this riffraff and start to think for ourselves again and get rid of this giant behemoth gorilla on most people's shoulders that are full of disinformation and lies, maybe people could start to understand again. But the problem is the way that the system works is it's like this slow boil. Most people are pretty comfortable in their lives. They've got air conditioning in their home. They got plenty of food in the fridge, and they're just going to continue to allow whatever takes place as long as they can be comfortable and live their lives. So,
lots to watch on TV. You can see the big game. You can see analysis before and after and during. There's a lot of stuff to keep your attention and keep you preoccupied from what's really important.
You're right. Well, thank you very much, Dick, for joining us, man. I can't wait to have you on the show again.
A very special thank you to our guest tonight. For all of you that had the opportunity to be here with us, if you enjoyed the show, follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/clandestine-timelord, for the most recent interviews, videos, and podcasts. Or you can check us out on the World Wide Web, www.leakproject.com. Would you like to be a guest on our show? Do you have information that the world needs to see and hear? Send us an email, guestbookings@leakproject.com. Thank you, everybody. This is Rex Bear with Leak Project. Stay safe and be the change you want to see. Good night.